The galaxy was silent, but it was not peace. Silence came because fear had spread across the stars. Worlds that once sang with life now whispered only in shadows. The alien empire had moved like a storm, crushing planets one after another. Their fleets were endless, their weapons beyond imagination. Every species that resisted was erased. Every voice that cried for freedom was silenced. And in this vast ocean of despair, there was Earth. A small blue world, fragile and young compared to the giants of the galaxy. To the Empire, humans were nothing. Primitive mammals. Weak bodies. Short lives. They believed humanity could never stand against them. They laughed at the idea. But tonight, in the dark of space, something was about to change. A single human ship drifted near the edge of the Empire's territory. It was not large. It was not powerful. Its hull carried scars from battles already lost. Inside, the crew sat in silence, waiting. They were not soldiers from a mighty fleet. They were survivors. Engineers, pilots, fighters, all gathered for one mission. The mission was simple: survive long enough to strike back. The captain, a woman named Aria, stared at the stars through the cracked glass of the command deck. Her eyes were tired, but they burned with a fire the Empire had never seen before. She whispered to herself, "They think we are weak. They think we will break. Let them think." The crew listened. They did not speak. Words were useless now. Only action mattered. Outside, the alien warships moved like predators. Their lights cut through the void, searching for prey. They had destroyed colonies, burned cities, and left ashes where life once thrived. To them, this human ship was nothing more than a bug waiting to be crushed. But inside that fragile vessel was a secret. A weapon not made of steel or fire, but of human will. The Empire had studied humans. They measured our strength, our technology, our numbers. They believed they understood us. But they did not understand our chaos. They did not understand our stubbornness. They did not understand that when humans are pushed to the edge, we fight with everything, even with nothing. The ship drifted closer to the enemy fleet. The crew's hands shook, but their eyes stayed sharp. Every second felt like eternity. The silence of space pressed against them, heavy and cold. Then, the alarms rang. The Empire had seen them. Alien voices echoed through the comms, mocking. "Primitive humans, you dare enter our space? You will be erased." The crew did not answer. They prepared. The enemy ships moved in, confident, arrogant. They had crushed countless worlds. Why should this be different? But Aria smiled. It was not the smile of victory. It was the smile of defiance. She whispered again, "They don't know us." Not yet. The human ship powered its engines. Lights flickered. Systems groaned. It was not built for war, but it was built for survival. And survival was enough. The first alien shots fired. Beams of energy cut through the void, burning holes into the ship's shields. The crew held their breath. The ship shook, but it did not fall. Aria gave the order. Release the decoys. Small pods shot out from the ship, scattering in every direction. To the aliens, they looked like escape capsules. They laughed again. Running already? But the pods were not escape capsules. They were traps. Each pod carried hacked signals, false codes, and fragments of human technology designed to confuse the Empire's sensors. Suddenly, the alien fleet saw hundreds of human ships where there was only one. Their systems glitched. Their targeting failed. Confusion spread. The crew moved fast. Pilots twisted the ship through the chaos. Engineers rerouted power. Fighters prepared weapons. Every human on board worked as if their lives depended on it, because they did. The Empire fired wildly, hitting shadows, chasing ghosts. And in that chaos, the human ship struck. A single missile, small compared to the Empire's weapons, flew straight into the heart of a warship. The aliens ignored it at first. Too small, too weak. But when it hit, the warship exploded. Silence followed. The galaxy had never seen it before. A human ship destroying an Empire vessel. The crew stared at the burning wreck. Their hearts raced. Their hands trembled. They had done the impossible. Aria closed her eyes. She whispered, "This is only the beginning." The Empire's laughter stopped. For the first time, they felt something they had never felt before. Fear. Because tonight, humans had shown the galaxy a truth no one wanted to believe. Humans weren't supposed to win. But they did. The Empire believed it knew everything about humans. They had studied our history, our wars, our fragile bodies. To them, we were nothing more than a small species on a small planet. Short lives, weak muscles, primitive tools. They thought we were predictable, easy to control, easy to erase. But the truth was different. Humans were not strong because of their weapons. They were strong because of their minds. They were strong because of their chaos. And chaos was something the Empire could never understand. Across the galaxy, alien commanders spoke with arrogance. Humans are reckless. They fight without order. They waste energy. They cannot win. Their words spread like poison, convincing every soldier that Earth was no threat. Yet inside the human fleet, the story was different. Survivors carried memories of burning cities, destroyed colonies, and families lost. Pain became fuel. Fear became fire. And from that fire came something the Empire had never faced before: determination. Aria, the captain of the small ship, knew this truth better than anyone. She had seen the Empire's cruelty. She had watched her home reduced to ash. She had buried friends who believed humanity had no chance. But she refused to believe it. "They think we are weak," she told her crew. "They think we will break. But weakness is only what they see. Strength is what we hide." Her words carried weight. The crew listened, their hearts heavy but alive. They were not soldiers trained in perfect order. They were ordinary humans, forced into war. And that was their advantage. Humans did not fight like machines. They fought like storms. Unpredictable, wild, impossible to control. The Empire had rules. They followed patterns. They trusted numbers. But humans broke rules. They bent patterns. They turned numbers into lies. One alien commander once said, "Humans fight like fire. Small, chaotic, but impossible to control." His words were ignored. The Empire laughed at him. But soon, those words would become prophecy. The human ship drifted through space, carrying its secret weapon. Not missiles, not lasers, but imagination. Every engineer, every pilot, every fighter thought differently. They argued. They improvised. They created solutions in moments of panic. And that chaos became strength. The Empire could not understand why humans attacked in strange ways. Why they used broken ships as traps. Why they turned debris into weapons. Why they risked everything for one chance. But that was the human way. Aria remembered the first time she saw humans win a battle. It was not with power. It was with trickery. A small group of fighters had hidden inside asteroids, waiting for the Empire's fleet to pass. When the ships came close, the fighters launched a surprise attack, destroying a vessel 10 times stronger. The galaxy gasped. The Empire called it luck. But Aria knew it was not luck. It was human spirit. Now, as her ship moved deeper into enemy territory, she carried that memory like a blade. She knew the Empire underestimated them. She knew they believed humans could never rise. And she planned to use that arrogance against them. The crew worked silently, preparing for the next strike. Their hands shook, but their eyes burned. They were afraid, but fear did not stop them. Fear made them sharper. Fear made them alive. Outside, alien voices filled the comms. Primitive humans. "You dare resist? You will be erased." Aria did not answer. She let them speak. She let them laugh. Because every word of arrogance was another step toward their downfall. The Empire believed humans were fragile. But fragility was only the surface. Beneath it was steel. Beneath it was fire. Beneath it was something no alien could measure: the will to survive. And survival was enough. The crew launched another wave of decoys. The Empire laughed again, thinking humans were running. But the decoys carried false signals, hacked codes, and illusions. Suddenly, the alien fleet saw hundreds of human ships where there was only one. Confusion spread. The Empire fired wildly, chasing shadows. Their perfect order broke. Their confidence cracked. And in that chaos, humans moved like ghosts. Aria whispered, "They don't understand us. They never will." Her ship twisted through the void, dodging fire, striking where no one expected. Every move was reckless, but every move worked. The Empire's rules failed against human chaos. For the first time, alien soldiers began to doubt. They asked themselves, how can such a weak species fight like this? How can they survive? The answer was simple. Humans were underestimated. And that was their greatest weapon. The battle raged on. Explosions lit the dark. The Empire tried to regain control, but the more they fought, the more humans broke their order. Aria's crew cheered as another warship fell. Their voices filled the ship, raw and alive. They were not just fighting for victory. They were fighting to prove a truth the galaxy had forgotten. Humans were not weak. Humans were unstoppable when pushed to the edge. The Empire had made a mistake. They had underestimated humanity. And now, that mistake would cost them everything. Because in the silence of space, in the fire of battle, one truth echoed louder than any weapon. Humans weren't supposed to win, but they did. The Empire had always believed their fleets were untouchable. Their warships were massive, built with technology far beyond human reach. They had crushed countless worlds, leaving nothing but silence behind. To them, humans were only noise in the background, a weak species that could never rise. But tonight, that belief was about to break. Aria stood on the command deck of her ship, staring at the enemy fleet ahead. Her crew waited for her signal. The air inside the vessel was heavy, filled with fear and hope. Every heartbeat echoed like thunder. They knew this moment would decide everything. The Empire's ships moved closer, their lights glowing like blades in the dark. Alien voices filled the comms, mocking. Primitive humans. You dare resist? You will be erased. Aria did not answer. She whispered to herself, they think we are weak. Let them think. Her crew prepared the weapons. The ship was small, its firepower limited. Against the Empire's fleet, it looked like a candle facing a storm. But humans had something the Empire did not. Imagination. The plan was reckless. It was dangerous, but it was the only chance. Release the shadows, Aria ordered. Pods shot out from the ship, scattering across space. To the Empire, they looked like broken escape capsules. The aliens laughed. Running already? But the pods were not escape capsules. They carried hacked signals, false codes, and fragments of human technology designed to confuse. Suddenly, the Empire's sensors saw hundreds of human ships where there was only one. Confusion spread. Alien commanders shouted orders, but their systems glitched. Their targeting failed. Their perfect order cracked. Aria's crew moved fast. Pilots twisted the ship through the chaos. Engineers rerouted power. Fighters prepared weapons. Every human worked as if their lives depended on it. Because they did, the Empire fired wildly, chasing ghosts. Their beams cut through empty space, striking shadows instead of targets. And in that chaos, the human ship struck. A single missile launched, small compared to the Empire's weapons. The aliens ignored it at first. Too weak, too small. But when it hit, the warship exploded. Silence followed. The crew stared at the burning wreck. Their hearts raced. Their hands trembled. They had done the impossible. Aria whispered, "This is only the beginning." The Empire's laughter stopped. For the first time, they felt something they had never felt before, fear. But Aria was not finished. She gave the next order. Target the command vessel. Her crew hesitated. The command vessel was massive, guarded by layers of shields and weapons. To attack it was madness. But Aria's eyes burned with fire. If we strike the heart, the body will fall. The ship moved closer, weaving through chaos. Alien fire rained down, shaking the vessel, tearing at its shields. Sparks flew inside. Systems screamed. But the crew held on. They launched another wave of decoys. More confusion spread. The Empire's sensors failed again. Shadows filled the battlefield. And then, the human ship fired. The missile flew straight into the command vessel's shield. The impact shook the giant ship. Alarms rang across the alien fleet. The shield cracked. The crew cheered. For the first time, the Empire's heart had been wounded. Alien commanders shouted in panic. How can this be? How can humans strike us? But the answer was simple. Humans were underestimated. And that mistake was now destroying the Empire's order. The battle raged on. Explosions lit the dark. The Empire tried to regain control, but the more they fought, the more humans broke their rules. Aria's ship twisted through the void, dodging fire, striking where no one expected. Every move was reckless, but every move worked. The Empire's perfect order failed against human chaos. Another warship fell. Then another. The galaxy watched in shock. For the first time, the unstoppable Empire was bleeding. Aria's crew shouted with joy, their voices raw and alive. They were not just fighting for victory. They were fighting to prove a truth the galaxy had forgotten. Humans were not weak. Humans were unstoppable when pushed to the edge. The Empire had made a mistake. They had underestimated humanity. And now, that mistake was costing them everything. Because in the silence of space, in the fire of battle, one truth echoed louder than any weapon. Humans weren't supposed to win, but they did. The Empire had ruled for centuries. Its fleets stretched across the stars. Its armies crushed every voice of rebellion. No species had ever stood against them for long. Resistance always ended in silence. But now, something new was spreading. News of the human strike traveled faster than light. Whispers moved from one world to another, carried by smugglers, traders, and hidden channels. Humans destroyed an Empire warship, they said. Humans wounded the command vessel. At first, many laughed. Impossible, they thought. Humans were too weak, too fragile. But the evidence was clear. Burning wreckage drifting in space, signals intercepted from the Empire's own fleet, and survivors who swore they had seen it with their own eyes. The galaxy began to listen. On distant planets, oppressed species raised their heads. For years, they had lived under the Empire's shadow, afraid to fight. But now hope flickered. If humans could resist, maybe they could too. Aria's ship became a symbol. It was not the strongest vessel, not the largest fleet. It was small, scarred, and fragile. Yet it had done the impossible, and that made it legendary. Inside the ship, the crew felt the change. Messages poured in from hidden allies. "We heard what you did," they said. "We want to fight." Aria stood on the command deck, listening to the voices. Her heart burned with pride. She knew humanity was still weak compared to the Empire. But weakness was no longer the story. The story was defiance. The story was survival. "They thought we were alone," Aria whispered. "But now, the galaxy is watching." The Empire tried to silence the rumors. They spread lies, claiming the human victory was an accident, a trick of fate. They said the warship had malfunctioned. The command vessel had suffered from internal failure. But no one believed them. The Empire's arrogance had cracked. On one world, a group of miners refused to surrender their colony. On another, scientists sabotaged Empire weapons. Across the stars, small sparks of rebellion began to glow. And every spark carried the same message. Humans fought back. Humans won. The Empire grew restless. Commanders argued. Soldiers doubted. Fear spread like a shadow. They had crushed countless species, but none had ever inspired others. None had ever made the galaxy believe. But humans had. Aria's crew prepared for the next mission. They were tired, their ship damaged, but their spirits were alive. They knew the Empire would come for them with everything it had. But they also knew they were no longer fighting alone. One engineer, a young man named Kieran, spoke softly. "We were supposed to die. We were supposed to vanish. But now we are the spark." His words carried through the ship. The crew nodded. They understood. Outside, the stars seemed brighter. The silence of space no longer felt empty. It felt alive, filled with whispers of rebellion. The Empire launched a massive fleet to hunt the humans. They wanted to crush the symbol before it grew too strong. But everywhere they went, resistance rose. Colonies refused to obey. Ships vanished into shadows. Allies appeared where none had been before. The galaxy was changing. Aria watched the Empire's movements, studying their patterns. She knew they were desperate. She knew they wanted to erase humanity before the story spread too far. But it was already too late. The story had become legend. On hidden channels, voices spoke with fire. Humans were not supposed to win. But they did. And if they can fight, so can we. The Empire's grip weakened. Fear turned into doubt. Doubt turned into cracks. And cracks turned into rebellion. Aria stood tall, her eyes burning with determination. She whispered to her crew, "This is the turning point. The galaxy will never be the same." Her ship moved forward, carrying the weight of hope. Every battle, every strike, every act of defiance added to the legend. Humanity was no longer just a species. Humanity was a symbol. And symbols could not be erased. The Empire had underestimated them. They had laughed at them. But now, the laughter was gone. In its place was silence. In its place was fear. Because the galaxy had seen the truth. Humans weren't supposed to win. But they did. The Empire could not ignore the spreading rebellion. Every world whispered the same story. Humans fought back. Humans won. The legend grew, and with it, the cracks in the Empire's control. The rulers decided there could be only one answer. Crush Earth. Crush humanity. End the symbol before it became unstoppable. And so, the largest fleet in history gathered. Thousands of warships, endless armies, weapons that could burn planets. They moved toward Earth like a tidal wave, determined to erase humanity forever. Aria stood on the command deck of her ship, watching the reports. Her crew was silent. They knew what was coming. The Empire was bringing everything. They want to end us, Aria whispered. Then we will show them what it means to fight humans. The human fleet was small compared to the Empire's armada. Ships patched together from scraps, weapons built from stolen parts, shields weaker than the enemy's firepower. But every vessel carried something the Empire could not measure. Human will dot on Earth, civilians prepared. Scientists worked day and night, creating traps and defenses. Soldiers trained, but so did farmers, miners, and children. Humanity was united. For the first time in history, every human stood together. The day of battle arrived. The Empire's fleet appeared in the sky, blotting out the stars. Their warships stretched across the horizon, endless and terrifying. Alien voices filled the comms, cold and certain. This is the end of humanity. You will be erased. Aria's ship moved forward, leading the human fleet. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. This is not the end. This is the fight. The battle began. The Empire fired first. Beams of energy cut through the void, striking human ships. Explosions lit the sky. Shields cracked. Hulls burned. The Empire laughed, certain of victory. But humans did not break. Every ship fought back, reckless and wild. Pilots twisted through fire. Engineers rerouted power. Fighters launched weapons in impossible angles. Chaos filled the battlefield. The Empire tried to control the fight, but control was impossible. Humans fought like storms, unpredictable and fierce. They turned debris into weapons, turned broken ships into traps, turned desperation into strength. Aria's ship moved through the chaos, striking where no one expected. Her crew worked as one, their voices sharp and alive. Every second was survival. Every second was defiance. The Empire's fleet pressed harder, but the more they attacked, the more humans resisted. Civilians on Earth launched hidden weapons, satellites fired beams, ground forces struck from shadows. Humanity fought with everything, even with nothing. The battle raged for hours. Explosions shook the sky. Fire lit the horizon. The Empire's warships fell one by one, their perfect order broken by human chaos. But the command vessel still stood. Massive, unstoppable, the heart of the Empire's fleet. If it survived, the Empire would survive. Aria knew this truth. She whispered to her crew, "We strike the heart. We end this now." Her ship moved closer, weaving through fire. Shields cracked, systems screamed, but they did not stop. Every human on board knew this was the moment. The Empire's weapons locked onto them. Beams fired, tearing into the hull. Sparks flew inside. The ship shook, groaning under the pressure. But Aria did not hesitate. She gave the order. Fire everything. Missiles launched. Beams shot. Decoys scattered. The command vessel's shields flared, struggling to hold. And then, the final strike hit. The command vessel exploded, a fireball tearing through the sky. The Empire's fleet froze. Their heart was gone. Their order was broken. Silence followed. The galaxy watched in shock. The unstoppable Empire had fallen. Humanity had done the impossible. Aria stood tall, her eyes filled with fire. She whispered, "This is our victory. This is our survival." Her crew cheered, their voices raw and alive. They had fought with everything. They had won against all odds. The Empire's fleet scattered, broken and defeated. The galaxy was free, and in the silence of space, one truth echoed louder than any weapon. Humans weren't supposed to win, but they did. The war was over. The Empire had fallen. Its fleets were scattered, its command vessel destroyed, its soldiers broken. For centuries, the galaxy had lived under its shadow. Now, that shadow was gone. And at the center of this victory stood humanity. On Earth, celebrations filled the skies. Cities that had once burned now glowed with light. Families reunited, survivors embraced, and voices sang with joy. Humanity had faced extinction, but instead, they had risen. They had fought with everything, and they had won. Aria stood on the command deck of her ship, watching the stars. Her crew was tired, their bodies scarred, but their spirits burned brighter than ever. They had survived the impossible. They had become legends. They thought we were weak, Aria whispered. They thought we would break, but we did not. We endured. And now, the galaxy knows who we are. Her words carried across the ship. The crew listened, their hearts heavy with pride. They were not just survivors anymore. They were symbols. Across distant worlds, oppressed species rose from silence. Miners who had once bowed to Empire soldiers now stood tall. Scientists who had hidden their work now shared it freely. Farmers who had lived in fear now planted seeds of hope. Everywhere, the same message spread. Humans fought back. Humans won. The galaxy began to change. Alliances formed. Old enemies became friends. Species that had once feared the Empire now looked to Earth for guidance. Humanity, once ignored, now stood at the center of history. But with victory came responsibility. Aria knew this truth. She knew humanity could not rule the galaxy, nor should they. But they could lead by example. They could show others that survival was possible, that defiance was strength, that unity was power. On Earth, leaders gathered. They spoke of rebuilding, of peace, of freedom. They promised to protect the galaxy from new empires, new tyrants. Humanity had suffered too much to allow darkness to rise again. The Empire's survivors whispered in fear. They spoke of humans as monsters, as chaos, as fire that could not be controlled. But others spoke of humans as heroes, as symbols, as hope. The truth was both. Humans were chaos. Humans were fire. Humans were unstoppable when pushed to the edge. And that made them dangerous. But it also made them necessary. Aria's ship drifted through the stars, carrying the weight of this new legacy. Her crew looked out at the galaxy, knowing they had changed it forever. One pilot, a young woman named Lyra, spoke softly. We were supposed to vanish. We were supposed to be erased. But now we are the story. Her words echoed through the ship. The crew nodded. They understood. The galaxy would never forget what had happened. The Empire had ruled for centuries, but it had fallen to the species no one believed in. Humanity had become the legend, and legends do not die. On distant worlds, children listened to the story. They heard of humans who fought with nothing, who turned weakness into strength, who defied the impossible. They dreamed of becoming like them. On Earth, survivors built monuments. Towers of light rose into the sky, carrying the names of those who had fallen. Humanity remembered its pain, but also its victory. Aria stood before one of these monuments, her eyes filled with fire. She whispered, "This is our legacy. Not just survival, not just victory, but hope." Her crew stood beside her, silent but proud. They knew the galaxy was watching. They knew humanity had become more than a species. Humanity had become a symbol, and symbols could not be erased. The Empire had underestimated them. They had laughed at them. But now, the laughter was gone. In its place was silence. In its place was fear. Because the galaxy had seen the truth. Humans weren't supposed to win. But they did. And now, the galaxy would never forget.